Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talk the Block, the show where we talk about the HGTV hit show, Rock the Block. I'm Amy, and I'm here today with my fabulous co-host, Steven.
Fabulous. Actually, a little under the weather today. I got a little bit of throat virus, so I'm probably going to sound weird. Hopefully, I don't cough into the mic too much. So.
Yeah, I hope not. Also, I hope though your thoughts are on point, even if your voice isn't.
Oh, totally.
So this is season 5, episode 6.
Surprise!
Surprise bedroom redemption. And I'm not sure if we were watching an episode of Rock the Block or maybe The Price is Right here at the beginning. It was an odd way to start the show.
Yeah, they have a Wayfair warehouse. And so they went to the warehouse and they had 48 hours that supposedly. Okay. Supposedly 48 hours, which started at the warehouse. And in the warehouse, they were able to run around and get whatever they were going to need for the, it was going to be the outside bedroom of the second floor. Space that they all claimed they had no plans for doing anything in except staging. But now they got to run around and decide what to do with that space. And they had 5 particular things that they could pick.
Well, it had to be a multi-purpose bedroom.
Oh, yep.
So everyone, they had to take this bedroom and turn it into a bedroom that could also be used for a secondary purpose. And as Steven said, they had 5 options for the secondary purpose. It could be a craft room. It could be a meditation room. It could be a music room, it could be a social media studio, or it could be an office.
Yep. And they had there was a wall that had these 5 different choices, and when they got there, they took their choice off the wall, and so the teams that came after them would have to pick whatever was left. So they couldn't all do the same thing.
No duplicates, right?
And the room had been made fully done and with flooring. So they were not going to be expected or allowed to do any sort of renovation to the room. They had to use the room as is.
Any structural changes. Yeah. So basically they had to run around this warehouse. They had 15 minutes in the warehouse, and they had to select tile, furnishings, paint, light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, etc., all within 15 minutes. So it's kind of hard to believe that they could do this without already knowing what would be in the warehouse, but we're led to believe that they were able to run around and find materials that would complement each other and have some sort of unifying design concept all within 15 minutes.
Yeah, they had to do so it's an ensuite. So there was a bedroom, a closet, which nobody did anything with, and the door was always closed. So what's behind the door? But they had to do the bathroom too. So they had to get vanities and toilets and tile for the bathroom. So they did not only the bedroom, but they had to do the bathroom as well.
And they all had shopping carts, I think, to add for the visual appeal and fun. So they were running into each other with shopping carts. And
well, to start off, Keith and Evan decided to push their way through everybody. So there was a little contest at the beginning where they had some. You know what? Everybody out there knows by now, I'm a huge baseball fan. So they had some guy come out who was supposedly a World Series winner, and he's a shortstop, Jimmy Rollins. I guess we were going to look up who he is. No idea who the guy is. Not a baseball fan. But they had this little contest. Paige and Mitch won, which meant they got to go in 2 minutes before everybody else.
Yeah, I totally did not get this. Apropos of nothing, they decided to have this Jimmy Rollins on the show to do a little game where they had to throw a ball into the net, and whoever got it into the center net would get an extra 2 minutes. And no one actually made it into the center net, but Paige was the closest.
Yeah, it was like a tic-tac-toe board, and if you got it in the middle column, you got the advantage. If you got it in the center square, then you won. Paige was the one that picked. Only one from the teams got the throw. Paige got it in the top middle. Nobody else got it in the middle, so they won. Keith had a nice sidearm throwing style, but didn't win.
I have no idea why they did this. I mean, if they had extra time to fill in the show, or maybe Jimmy Rollins has a really good agent who wanted to get him on HGTV. But it was just kind of this thing that they did that had no connection to anything else on the show.
Yeah, he wasn't wearing any logos, so it wasn't apparent what team he played for. He either lives in the Tampa area or plays for a team somewhere.
We meant to look it up before the podcast. But,
so I'm sure this
forgot.
Talk about Jimmy Rollins is so interesting.
And it wasn't that interesting in this show either. In fact, we fast-forwarded through it the second time we watched the show.
We fast-forwarded a lot of things the second time. But anyway, so Paige and Mitch got their 2-minute advantage where they rushed through and they wound up picking the social media, and then they let the other teams go. Now, one thing I noticed, and it never got explained, and it was most obvious when Paige and Mitch went, when Ty told them to go, Mitch reached behind him and grabbed a paper and put it in. It looked like the paper. So when they were going through the warehouse, sometimes they would just pick up the item, but most of the time they were picking up like the piece of paper that indicated what the item was. So it looked like one of those pieces of papers he put in his cart. And I noticed when they told the other people to go, it looked one of the twins grabbed that too. I didn't see it in the carts for Brian and Sarah, maybe not Keith and Evan, but they grabbed that. But then as they're running out, Keith and Evan shoved their way in front of everybody, and I guess Keith said, "Get out of my way, I'm gay." Or move, I'm gay.
Move, I'm gay. It was pretty funny. But the shopping carts were just for show. Mainly what they were doing is just picking a piece of paper to indicate like which vanity, which tile, etc. they wanted. They could have done the whole thing without the shopping carts, but they wouldn't have been able to run into each other. And they put like a few pillows and maybe a nightstand into the shopping carts just to have the visual effect that as they ran out of the warehouse, they were full. And then I'm sure they stopped the carts, got into their cars, and everything was ordered and sent to the houses for them.
I didn't see any vanities or toilets in the shopping carts. So
that would have been interesting to have a toilet there in the shopping cart.
Yeah, that would have taken up quite a bit of the room. Mm-hmm. And they did have the required interaction between the teams where they pretended to fight over items.
Yes. This was a high team interaction episode, which we haven't had as much team interaction this season. So I think part of the reason they created this episode was to allow more team interaction. And then I think the other reason they added this episode was just to funnel a little bit more money into these teams as they are all running low on cash. And this provided them with vanity tile fixtures that apparently they didn't have to pay for. They were just able to grab out of the warehouse and wouldn't impact their budget.
Yeah, they said it was to see how they could create great design against a ticking clock.
And they actually had a countdown clock the whole episode, counting down from 48 hours.
It counted down. It did count down.
Now, what wasn't clear to me in this episode is, it seemed like they were supposed to get everything they needed out of the warehouse, but clearly there were a few things that were ordered after they left the warehouse.
Yep.
For example, Paige even said she was going to order some microphones to add to her social media room. I think those guitars for the music room were probably ordered afterward. Yeah,
the twins picked music room, and they had guitars and they had some acoustic treatment things that probably was not in the warehouse.
Now, Stephen, if you were in this contest, which of the 5 choices would you have picked
Office.
for the room? Office, the one that nobody
picked it.
Yeah. I think Office would be, the twins even said Office would be easy, and then they went and picked Music Room.
Yeah, they were the last ones to come through there, and it was either Music Room or Office, and they grabbed Office, and they're about to put it in their cart, and then they go, no, that's simple. Or no, they said it's simple, and they put it in the cart, and then maybe the fact that they said it was simple, they had to switch to Music Room.
Yeah, but Office, I think, would be most meaningful for a lot of people because a lot of people might have a room that they primarily use as an office and sometimes use as a bedroom. And, I know I do that with my office. It's primarily an office, but I have it set up so that it can be shifted to a bedroom pretty easily. So to me, that would be, maybe the most practical one, but no one chose that. Maybe they all thought it was just too easy.
And handy that it's on the second floor. Right. And also being that it's on the second floor, as you called out, once they decided what they were going to do, and Paige and Mitch is like, okay, now we've got to do it. And you called out, well, if you had an elevator, it'd be easier to get the stuff to the third floor.
You wouldn't have to drag all those tiles up the stairs. Yes, that's probably why Brian and Sarah won, because they were able to save time by using the elevator to transport their tiles to the second floor.
Right, yeah. Everything, the vanity, everything got up there a lot faster. Yeah.
Now, as far as the other choices go, I think craft room would also be a great idea for a multi-purpose room. And my sister kind of did that with a downstairs bedroom for a while until she commandeered a different room to make into a full-time craft room. But they really didn't do a craft room bedroom. They did basically a children's room with a place where the children could do crafts. So to me, that doesn't say craft room. It says children's bedroom, and maybe the children could do crafts on this table.
And that was Brian and Sarah. Brian and Sarah chose that. And that one was kind of weird because they had a crib and then they had a twin bed. And I don't know how many people are going to sleep in the same room with a baby. The babies went up and down. Depending on how old, up and down quite a bit, could be crying. Hopefully if somebody's old enough to be sleeping in the twin bed, they're sleeping through the night. They're not going to if there's a baby in the room. And I think Keith even called that out. They should have picked one and went with it instead of having both.
Yeah, I agree. From a staging perspective, that would have been better. Although I did have a friend who had 3 children in their 4-bedroom house, and then there was a surprise baby. So a baby bed was put into the same room as the youngest child, and
the baby bed, but probably not the crib.
Sleep. No, it was a crib.
It was a crib?
Yeah,
okay.
It looked a lot like
All
that.
Right.
Yeah. So it happens,
Well, I guess if you're limited for space, this is a 3,600 square foot house.
Now, I think that, exactly. So if you have a growing family, you've got to put the kids somewhere. Yeah. So I think the easiest room to make multi-purpose is meditation room, because what do you need to meditate?
Space.
A place where you can sit on the floor, and I guess,
I could meditate anywhere.
I'm not a
in any position.
I'm not a
Some people meditate standing on their heads.
Yeah, some people can do all kinds of meditation. I do yoga, and all you need for yoga is space for a yoga mat. You don't need anything else special in the room, so I'm assuming meditation might be similar. Although, I think what they did is they said, well, we're going to create a vibe in this room that would be conducive to meditation as well as to sleeping, as opposed to like we need to create a super space for meditation.
Yeah, and that was Keith and Evan. I struggle with that because, as you say, all you really need is just some space. And if the idea behind it is to have a multi-purpose bedroom, to me, it's a bedroom that just happens to have enough floor space that you can sit on. And they had these beautiful built-ins. And, of course, this was the artwork. Back to art projects.
Well, we'll go into that in more detail. But
okay.
I think, meditation room is pretty simple to make a multi-purpose room.
Well, yeah. I question if it's a bedroom and you just happen to have a space that you could sit down on the floor, is that a multi-purpose room? I know when they did the other room, they called it a flex room, and that was a room that was supposed to transform. But to me, a multi-purpose room also would be able to have the primary or the bulk of the space could be used for multiple things. And I guess in this case, it would always be a bedroom, and you would always have open floor space, so there was no transformation. And so I don't know, maybe I'm just a little confused on what they meant by a multi-purpose room. And I think the teams did, even Brian, Sarah, it was the same sort of things. Like there was a table for craft and there was a bed. So there was no transformation or duality, I think.
Yeah, and Stephen, I think you bring up a really good point, because they say multi-purpose room, and does that mean you have to always be able to do all things in the room, or does it mean that it easily transforms from one to the other? So, Sarah and Brian did a bedroom with a space for crafts. Keith and Evan did a bedroom with a space where you could meditate. Lindsay and Leslie did a bedroom with guitars hanging on the wall and a desk, so I guess that makes it a music room. But Paige and Mitch actually made a space that was transformative, right? It was set up really as a social media space. But if you wanted to have that as a guest room, say normally you were using it as a social media space, you were podcasting every day, editing things, whatever you needed to do in that room, it was set up really well for that. But if you needed an extra bedroom, you could easily take all those mics and what have you, put them in the closet, and then pull out the bed, and you have a nice guest room. So I thought, so to me, multi-purpose means normally I use it for one thing, but if I have a guest and I have a need for another bed, I can easily transform it into the other thing. And so, and they were kind of dinged for that because people didn't think it looked like a bedroom enough. So I guess multi-purpose doesn't mean transformative. I don't know. It wasn't well explained.
Yeah, I and that's what gets back to when they use the term the flex room. As you like to highlight, we are not contractors, we're not designers, we're homeowners that have done remodels and enjoy the show Rock the Block. So the terminology might just be something that the industry understands, and for the lay person who watches the show, you may not know what they're talking about. So, maybe if they had a little more play-by-play or explanation, Ty could easily have thrown out a couple of sentences and made sure to explain the difference between a multi-purpose and a flex room.
If you know, please, reach out to us leave us a comment and let us know the definition of flex space versus multi-purpose space, because I would think they're the same thing, but maybe not. We're learning.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, with that set up, Stephen, I'd like to take a short break, and we will be back in just a minute.
Oh, thank goodness. And we're back. Wow, that was very refreshing. I feel engaged again. Starting to lose it there.
Okay, all right, good. Well, I think that would describe most of these teams by the end of this challenge. They were visibly losing it. Some of them really looked tired by the end. Paige was getting a little snippy and whiny by the end of the challenge. So whether or not some
more
of these
whiny
design,
than usual,
more whiny than usual. Even though one can question whether some of these design decisions were made ahead of the warehouse scramble or not, it does seem like they had to do a lot of work in a very short time, and you could really see which teams were able to stand up to the pressure with grace and which ones were pretty much falling over on their feet by the end of it.
Yeah, I think they all did. Pretty well. It's interesting the different talents that people bring to it. Brian obviously does a lot of construction and is able to do a lot of things. Evan apparently is a little bit of a handyman too, because he built the built-ins. And I guess I didn't realize to this point that he they built things for furniture, maybe not to the extent that like Brian does or Mitch. But apparently he's very handy.
Yeah, he put those together really quickly. And I mean, since he's sort of the silent partner in that team, Keith tends to do 80% of the talking. It's not always clear what talents Evan's bringing to the table, but apparently he's a pretty good carpenter.
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, Stephen, do you want to dig into each team and what they did and what we liked and didn't like about it?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe we should just talk about baseball since that started. Oh, okay, fine. Okay. We'll talk the blog. I guess we'll talk about Rock the Blog.
Okay, Stephen. I know you're going to be excited because there was a bathroom this week, so we get to do...
Shower. There was a shower.
There was a shower, so we get to do niche watch. Niche watch. Niche watch.
Niche watch. Niche watch. Niche watch. Niche watches. Isn't that a salad? Niçoise?
Niçoise, yeah. I think that's a salad that has anchovies in it. You wouldn't like it.
Oh, yeah. I was just guessing.
Okay, so let's start with the twins, Lindsay and Leslie, who did a music room. Now,
they did a music room.
And
that was the title.
The title was Music Room.
Music Room. They had guitars on the wall to make sure.
You know it was a music room.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that Lindsay and Leslie really know that much about music.
Not at all.
They were playing the flute the wrong way when they were pretend playing the flute.
Yeah.
They had an amp sitting in the middle of the floor, apropos of nothing.
Next to the bed.
Just as a decorative
Nowhere near
element,
the desk or the quote-unquote music area.
But I think the biggest challenge that you had with this, Stephen, it was similar to my ocean view versus water view comment, was they kept saying that they soundproofed their room.
Yeah, they did not.
Okay. So
They did not do anything of the sort.
So can you describe, because I'm not an expert on this, but you've obviously created this lovely studio for us and understand a lot about soundproofing. Can you explain the difference between soundproofing and whatever it is that the twins did in their room?
Yeah, well, with soundproofing, what you want to do is you want to try to keep sound from getting in and getting out. So back in our old house when I used to do my audio books, I could hear the planes flying overhead, and I'd have to stop and wait for the plane to finish flying overhead because that was going to get on my track. And so when we got this house, I wandered around the house and I found the room that was the quietest in the house. Wasn't the room I was expecting, but it's the quietest room, and so I knew it would be easier to soundproof my this little area because I knew that it had interior walls, and it does have a couple of windows, but we've got acoustic blankets around and a couple of other treatments, so to try to keep sound from getting in. So if sound gets in, then it gets on the track, right? And then you can, if something's going on that's not part of this podcast, you'll hear it. And, maybe for this podcast is not so bad because you hear what's going on. It's not really a big deal. But if you're doing audiobooks like I do, or if you're doing music recording, you don't want the garbage truck beep, beep, beep showing up and on your track. And so that's soundproofing. What they did would look more like acoustic diffusion. And what you want is when you're in a studio. Now we have a desk in here, which totally violates these rules. But what you don't want are flat surfaces because sound bounces off flat surfaces. Now we've got the flat surfaces, we've got the acoustic blankets, so we do have a way of absorbing the sound in here. But flat surfaces are bad. So a lot of times what you'll do is you'll put things that have that break up the wall, and it looked like that was more of what they did. They hung these things from the ceiling, and behind this little desk with a couple of mics on it, which was the music area, they had things that looked like it would break up the sound. So it was more of a sound diffuser than soundproofing, and there was nothing in the room to absorb the sound, and the rest of the room had all the flat walls and was wide open. So I bet if you were still in there, if you still yelled, you would hear an echo. And that's kind of the thing that you look for if you're trying to sound insulate or your area, is if you can yell and you hear very little echo.
Well, the other thing I noticed is there's a pretty big window in that room, and they didn't even have a window treatment on it.
No, they didn't. Yeah. No, there was no soundproofing, and I get everybody on the show has to go along. Oh, this is so great! You've got a soundproof room. What? I mean, come on. Have you guys never seen a studio you think it looks like that? No. I mean, I've been in professional studios where they've got windows. They're generally not in where you're doing the recording. If they do, they've definitely got treatments that go over it, so to keep sound from coming in, sound going out. Especially, what did Paige said? They should have had a drum. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. I mean, there was no sound absorption anywhere. If somebody was playing a drum, and we have a family member that plays drum in a band, and their neighbors used to complain because they could hear them. And now in their new place, they've got a little bit more gap between them and their neighbor. And they've also got a lot of acoustic treatments in it to keep the sound from getting out. That's soundproofing. So when my nephew plays his drums in his house, the neighbors don't hear it. If you're playing drums in the twins' room, everybody's going to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. And I just a couple things to add on to that, Stephen. Even though it wasn't soundproofed, I did think that the acoustic, what do they call it, the acoustic diffusers they had added some visual interest to the room with the walls and hangings. So it looked good, and maybe it helped the sound better or something like that. Clearly, none of these people know much about music, though. When Paige was saying the thing that it needed was drums.
Now, okay, so maybe we're a little too into the craft, but since what they did is they had this itty bitty little desk, and that was the music studio, a desk with a couple of mics, and in front of them was some of the diffusers. And one of the cheap ways that you can do audiobooks, for those of you out there looking to do audiobooks, here's a cheap little way to do it. You can buy this little 3-panel thing that's, maybe about a foot and a half, 2 feet tall, and maybe about 2 feet around, and you put the mic in it. And so that way, if you're just doing audio, then kind of it absorb, you reduce that echo. And so it's kind of a nice, easy way to do it if you're traveling. I was talking to some other voiceover artists, and if they're doing it in a hotel room, they actually lay in the hotel bed with a pillow over their head. And it's literally, this woman has done voiceover work, not just audiobooks like all I've been able to get into, but actually voiceover work. And she says that when she's traveling, she will be in her hotel room with her head under the pillow on the bed recording in order, so that to kind of dampen, the noise. But anyway, so this 3-panel thing is easy to travel with. It's a cheap little way. It's on Amazon for.
Okay. All right.
No, you can get it from Wayfair. That's right.
Yeah. Well, we're not sponsored.
But anyway,
by
so since it was in front of them, if they wanted to say it was if a podcast, if that was whatever. Okay. It was a miss from a music room.
Okay. All right. So, elsewhere in the room, they had shadow boxes where they hung the guitars, which is kind of a neat treatment. A lot of people like to hang guitars on walls. I like the shadow boxes. And then, as I said, no curtains on the window. And then they had wallpaper around the wall with the window. And
just around that wall.
Yeah, just around that wall.
It looked okay.
So let's talk a little bit about their bathroom. First of all, and most importantly, how did you like their shower niche?
I think their shower niche in this room was bigger than the shower niche in the main. If I remember right, I think they're the ones that had the 2 little bitty ones. But yeah, this was. I think all the teams had. From the shower niche watch, it. They all looked like they all did about the same thing. So kudos for them for doing it in this bedroom when they didn't in the main.
Yeah. So they had sort of off-white tiles that were hung vertically in the shower, which looked good. Mm-hmm. And then they had kind of a busy floor pattern, which also was nice.
Yeah, very regular pattern, but innocuous.
But note that they had busy floor, plain shower. We'll talk about this more when we get to Keith and Evans, but I thought that was a nice contrast for their bathroom. Mm-hmm. There was a complaint when people went through it that they used mixed metals in the bathroom, which I personally hate. I like my metals to match. But as I looked at the other bathrooms, I think almost everyone had mixed metals to some extent. Maybe it was just a factor of what was available in the warehouse. So I'm not sure how legitimate that complaint was in the judging. Yeah,
the only thing I would say is that I thought it looked fine, but it was the faucet on the sink didn't match the shower head, and the shower didn't match the whatever the dial is to turn the shower on. Those three things were different, but like in Paige and Mitch, those were the same, but the sconces didn't match. Like they were gold sconces, and then they had they had a black color throughout it. So I think it's just kind of a little nitpick. I didn't mind it, but you did.
Yeah, so overall, it was good work in 48 hours. I did like the contrasting tiles in the bathroom. I thought the music room was it was an okay bedroom. It really didn't seem like a music studio to me, but there was nothing about it that was particularly off-putting.
We got a good look at their shower niche, and I guess it must have been because it was on the same wall with the shower head. Like when Paige and Mitch, we had to back up a couple of times to see, and we never really got a good glance of it, but it looked like we saw that there was one.
HGTV, show us the niches.
That's right.
We need to know.
So one thing I thought was interesting was that they had wrapped the shower niche with a colored Schluter, which was same Schluter that they used at the edge of their tile. But they seem to have had two edges for their tile, and I couldn't get a quite good view of whether they extended the tile out to the bathroom wall just slightly for aesthetics instead of having maybe a small a small wall with paint on it. Not exactly sure, but they did have two edges for tile, and they had the Schluter on it, and so then the Schluter kind of highlighted the shower niche, and I thought it looked okay. It looked a little unfinished. The edges weren't great, but I think you're right. The production assistants probably came in later and cleaned all that up.
Yeah, they did this work pretty quickly, so I'm imagining there was some touch-up work that was done after
totally.
The judging here. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to Brian and Sarah, who did a baby room / craft room.
Pass. Total pass.
Well, now, as we already said, they had a crib and a twin bed in here. They had a small table where you could do crafts and a couple of built-in shelves where you could display the crafts. The one thing that they did, which I didn't notice so much the first time I watched the show, but really stood out the second time, is they had inserted some paneling on the wall to sort of add interest. So it was the same color as the wall. The walls were painted white, and then they had white wood that was, nailed to the wall in kind of like you said, Stephen, a really high wainscoting type of treatment.
Yeah, because it didn't go all the way to the ceiling. It stopped about 2 feet.
And that definitely added interest. And then they had a sheer curtain over the window. And they had a secondary color of blue, which they used to paint the doors, which I thought was interesting. They were the only ones who did, something interesting with the doors. So overall, I think the details of that room, the room was kind of underwhelming to me because it was all white, and then they had the black bed, the black baby crib, and the black chandelier and curtain rod. So it was very clean looking, but I didn't get that much out of it. Watching it the second time, I liked it better. I do think some of the details, like that paneling on the wall, probably showed up better in person than they did on TV, though.
I think the panel does look really good, and I started thinking, where can I do that here? Because it wasn't like it was molding. The molding stuck out anywhere. It looked very elegant. All of the teams did this. They have these chandeliers in these rooms, and I don't really get it. The twins love the chandeliers that Brian and Sarah used, and it's like, okay, everybody has their taste. The only thing, they put in floating shelves, and they had a pegboard over the craft table. And just thinking through, Brian complained or commented on Paige and Mitch that it looked like all they really did was decorate. And I have to say, you kind of say the same thing here. All they really did was decorate in the bedroom. They a couple of cribs.
And
the paneling being the one different. Yeah. I mean. Okay, and that takes work. I'm not going to dispute that there's work there, but other than that, it threw a couple beds and a little bit of table.
Paige and Mitch, and we'll get to them in a minute.
I was not impressed with this bedroom.
Mostly staging. So in their bathroom, they used a penny tile on the floor because they felt like if it was a children's bathroom, that would be less likely to slip. We'll take their word for that.
They called it bubble, which I didn't get, but
I thought they called it penny tile.
Bubble.
Okay, all right.
Because I don't get the non-slip part of that. It's tile. I don't get it. That's what they said.
They had a brown vanity, and they had sort of a gray tile in the shower, which Sarah said as they were putting it up, she didn't like it. But I thought at the end it looked nice. I thought their shower tile was pretty.
I I don't know. I don't know what she would have preferred to have. 'Cause she didn't really go into that. I think it was interesting, because Brian does all the tile work, and he's sitting there putting in this tile, and the tile was looked like it was probably about maybe 2x6s, 2x8s, and so there's a lot of tile to put in there. And Keith and Evan, they had their kind of like rock wall that they did. I think there's a lot of work there too, and similar. So the twins had similar tile, and then Paige and Mitch had something kind of similar too. So it seemed like it didn't seem like they had an option of having large tile that would have taken less time to do.
Yes. I don't know why they didn't give them bigger plates of tile.
Right, yeah.
Like in our shower, we have like 18 by 12 on our walls, which, they're very heavy though. So
18 by 3 is it? Yeah. 3 by 1.5. But large tile doesn't take that many to put up.
Yes, exactly. Okay, and so...
I do have to point out, you did see Paige and Mitch using the spacers, which nobody else did.
Okay, all right. Stephen, what did you think of the niche in Brian and Sarah's shower?
Oh, let's see. Small niche. I guess it was okay. Nothing that really stand out. You did get to see it. I think the most interesting thing out of their bathroom, bathroom looked fine. It's all good. But they didn't have a shower door.
No shower door, no shower curtain. I think maybe it didn't arrive because nobody dinged them for it. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty clear that was not a walk-in shower. If you were trying to use that shower without a door or a curtain, you would have sprayed all over the place. Yeah. So it could just be, and we've experienced ourselves, sometimes glass takes longer to arrive, and so they were probably instructed not to comment on that in the judging. Yeah.
It looked, when we saw Paige and Mitch's, after we noticed that, when we saw Paige and Mitch's, I think it looked like their shower was exactly the same, and so it was probably exactly the same sort of thing, a sliding glass door with a glass panel.
Okay.
That would be my guess, but yeah, that was... sadly, the most interesting thing about their bathroom. That's how I was really not. I mean, I understand there's a lot of work that goes into doing nothing, but they accomplished doing nothing in a lot of time.
Okay, so let's move on.
How do I really feel about that?
I often accomplish doing nothing in a lot of time. That's kind of my specialty. But anyway, let's move on to Keith and Evan, who did a meditation room. So I really loved their bedroom. I thought it was very relaxing. The colors were soft, sophisticated. I really liked it. Their bathroom, not so much. I think if it would have been judging just on the bedroom, they probably would have won. But their bathroom, I think, really almost offended some of the judges, and we'll talk about the judging in a minute. So I think, unfortunately, they made some bad decisions in the bathroom. But let's talk about the bedroom first. I know you had one big problem with the bedroom, but overall, what did you think of the design for the bedroom?
Oh, yeah, I agree. It looked beautiful. Great color. Very consistent color. These guys, they pick a palette, they stick with it. And so you can tell that this room is part of the rest of the house. It's not like you're going to walk into that room and go, wow, am I in the same place? So very cohesive to what else they've done. The wallpaper that was behind the bed looked really nice, complemented the color in the room. It was
like a grass cloth wallpaper.
Yeah, that's right, grass cloth. Yes, we have grass cloth in our house, and I've got a niece that works for a company that makes wallpaper, and I was talking to her once, and she said, yeah, I can't wait to come and see your grass cloth. And I'm like, you're going to come see what? She said, oh, yeah, your grass cloth, your wallpaper. Oh, yeah, wallpaper. Oh, yeah, okay. And so now I know. Now that I got called out by my niece, now when somebody says grass cloth, now I know what it is.
And we know that Keith and Evan love curtains, so they had some really beautiful drapes that complemented the colors in the room, and I thought just gave the overall room a finished, cozier look.
Yeah, they're definitely the winners of Rock the Curtain.
Rock the Curtain. And nice light fixture, nice chandelier. Yeah. And then for their quote-unquote
the chandelier was my favorite.
It was really, really pretty, and everything was very cohesive, as you said, Stephen. And then for their meditation space, they had some built-in bookshelves that were in kind of a U shape on the wall. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of those was a big painting of a Hindu goddess, I assume, that Keith had whipped together during the 2 days of this challenge. I was not in love with this painting. It would not be something I would want to hang on my wall. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and see this giant head. And
oh, yes.
it kind of freaked me out.
Didn't think about that. When I was in college, one of my roommates had this, and our beds kind of faced each other, and he had this big picture of his white cat curled up with a black background, and I wore glasses at the time, terrible vision, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'd see that, and I'd be like, what the? It'd scare me. I'd wake up and I'd see this thing floating over David's bed, and it always got me. That cat didn't like me to begin with.
So I think that giant face would be off-putting to me. Again, art is subjective, and we've talked about this in previous podcasts. This is easily changeable, though.
Yeah.
So if you don't like that picture, you could take it down and have nothing there, or hang another picture that you like better. It would take you about 5 minutes to do that. So I don't consider that to be a real flaw. It's just something, it's a staging piece, and you could put whatever you wanted in between those bookshelves.
Yeah, easily. And I don't even think it was mounted. I think it was leaning against the wall, so you could take that down. The U-shaped built-ins created a nice space to put things up there. I think all of that went pretty well. If somewhere in this 48 hours, Keith had time to do this, and Paige said, "Oh yeah, I saw him doing it." That's pretty good. With the 48 hours, and he's doing all this other stuff, and he's doing this huge painting, and it looks good. I mean, I'm not to my taste. I wouldn't want it in my house, but it looked really nicely done.
No, I mean, clearly he's pretty talented if he could whip that out as quickly as he did.
Yeah, maybe he should go to a different career. I mean, or maybe he does this in his spare time. But he does it for all of his... Anyway, moving on.
I mean, yeah. So, I mean, and I will say the other thing, that the Hindu goddess picture did make it seem like meditation space, right? So really you could use that space for whatever you wanted. You could put a chair there and have it be your reading space if that's what you like. But it did sort of, thematically, it worked with what they were supposed to be doing.
I thought the two pillows on the floor indicated it was a meditative space.
Yeah. Whenever I see two pillows on the floor, I think this is where you meditate. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot about that.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about the bathroom. So they chose this river rock tile because it was similar to what they did in the main bathroom.
Right.
However, they chose to use the river rock tile on the floor and on the wall in the shower.
As you pointed out, our designer would have thought that was awesome because she wanted us to do that.
But this was very busy. All these rocks of sort of different shades of brown and gray and what have you. So you go from this relaxing, cohesive bedroom, and then you open up the bathroom door, and it's like psychedelic. I mean, it's like rocks and circles all over the place. So I thought it took away from the feeling that they'd created in the bedroom.
It did. I thought it looked fine. And they used a caramel grout. And Mitch thought that if they used white grout, that maybe it would have faded. And as Brian said, he gets this whole calm feeling. Then you open up the door and you see that back wall. And because they used the caramel grout, the rocks really stood out. That was me that time. I think to that standpoint, if they'd been able to use the river rock and had used a different grout, they used that same thing on the floor, and it didn't bother anybody. It just kind of gave a nice texture to the look. But I think, when we saw the picture looking through the bedroom, and you could see the bathroom tile, which there was kind of some odd lighting because the whole thing looked brown, which it did not look when you go in there. It did not. It did look disjoint. It did look busy. So I think, they could have made a different choice in the shower, either the tile or the grout. Yeah,
so I think they would have been better off if they'd done the river rock either on the floor or in the shower, kind of like the twins who had a busy floor but a plain shower, one or the other, not the same in both places. And, maybe the white grout then would have looked better with the counter and other things that they had.
Which was white.
Yeah. So
now, the twins said that they loved the caramel color.
They love the caramel color. And I think.
Oh, wait. Did we cover the judging? Why we're commenting on what other people are saying?
No. So I was saving that. But since we've been going on and on about this, we should probably.
Okay. Well, we can keep going and just keep the listeners in suspense. But what they might be wondering why we keep saying what the other teams had to say about what they did, because normally they don't comment
spaces,
on except the exterior spaces.
Yeah. So this week the teams judged each other. So you weren't allowed to be in your space when it was judged, and the other 3 teams would come through and comment on your space and then give you a score from 1 to 10. And so that's how we know that Brian and Mitch did not like the caramel grout in the bathroom, but the twins did.
Yeah.
So, and I do think that this caused them to win, because I think, Brian and Sarah in particular really loved the bedroom that Keith and Evan did, but really did not love the bathroom. So
yeah, I think you can only get a certain amount of the comments, and it's all editing, but that's what you get to see. So you don't really know all the comments that they make, just what makes TV. Made it on the TV show. So, yeah, everybody seemed to like it, like the bedroom.
Okay, so let's talk about Paige and Mitch, and then we'll move on and talk about the judging. So, as we already said, Paige and Mitch.
Wait. Did we talked about Keith and Evan already? Right? We didn't talk about the shorts watch.
We didn't talk about
shorts watch
or shorts watch. Yeah, we're missing. So, well, first of all, what about Keith and Evan's shower niche?
They had one.
Okay, all right. And what about shorts watch?
I didn't notice
see
paint.
Any paint on his shorts
and
this
even
week.
though he was well, I guess maybe he's when he's painting his art, he's not as messy as when he's painting in a room. I don't know.
Yeah. So clean shorts
week
for Keith. Good job. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Paige and Mitch, as we already said, did a social media room, and this was really set up. They had a day bed that could be used as a couch, and they had a couple microphones and a little table sitting in front of that, so you could easily be podcasting there. It would be very comfortable. They had a desk by the window with a computer and a webcam. And then, apropos of nothing, and it was never explained, they had a giant white projector screen on one that was just sort of like hanging from the ceiling against one wall.
Like 3/4 of the room.
Yeah, it covered 3/4 of the room. It wasn't hidden. It was just hanging there. And
it was white. It wasn't green.
I mean, I guess you could use that if you were filming something or projecting. I don't know. It just I wish they would have left that out because it was kind of an eyesore.
Yeah, and it was partially pulled down, so you couldn't ignore it. I mean, so pulled down about a foot. Not exactly sure. I didn't see a handle on it. I didn't see a string. I'm not sure how you would pull it down or how you would get it back up. Or once you got it back up, how would you pull it back down? Or what it was for was the thing that was the most we watched the show twice. And we're paying attention to what other people said and hoping Paige and Mitch would at least comment on the fact, hey, look, we've got this screen. This is going to be great. It's going to be great value add. It's the symbol of luxury, whatever, but nothing.
Well, and now that I think about it, what they got dinged on was that their room didn't look very bedroomish. And at first I'm thinking that's not really fair, because you could take all these microphones and stuff in about 5 minutes, put them in a closet, and pull out the daybed. It had nightstands. It easily could have transformed, but that screen didn't look like that was easily takedownable, and that did not look like something you would have in the bedroom. So that befuddles me why they had that in there.
I have no clue. Yeah, the twins even kind of argued a little bit about that. One twin said, "Oh, you can't move this out," and then the other one said, "Sure you can. All you got to do is move those 3 things, and you're done." And then the first one, at some point in time, I really think I had to figure out which one's Leslie and which one's Lindsay. But if you don't know, it's not going to matter. I'm calling them out. It's just one said one said another. But and then the first one came back and said, "Oh, but then you'd have to pull the bed out." Yeah, well, that's what it's called, a pull out.
Daybed, yeah.
Sofa, pull out, right? But big deal. You've got to do that.
Now they went with a black theme. Their entire room was painted black,
yep.
And probably good for social media. Everyone seemed to like it because it was dramatic. they had purchased some wallpaper to give contrast in one wall, but then they decided that the wallpaper really didn't work, so they didn't use it. And I think one of the things that they got sort of dinged for is their room really was just painted black and staging. There weren't any built-ins. There wasn't any wallpaper, any sort of significant design elements other than sort of the paint and the chandelier that they put in. So I guess I can say that that's a fair criticism, right? I thought it looked cool, but as far as adding value, appraised value to the house, there really wasn't anything there.
Yeah, I think that's a fair criticism. They even had some little disco light projector sitting on the floor, which I have no idea what the point of that was. The thing that I thought was funny was that they had this neon light on the wall that said live on air in the room. We have I have a red light on a lamp that I have outside of my recording studio that I had turned on when I do recording, and so when Amy comes to my area, she can tell. And our old house was small, and she was usually in her office, and it was just up in her office. But her office was right above my my studio, so the soundproofing wasn't very good in our old house.
Well, and it's a nitpick. I mean, it was just there for decoration.
It was there for decoration.
But if you're going to really have a live on air sign, you'd probably put it outside the door.
Yeah. Outside. Don't come in, or if you come in, be quiet. Yeah, like the one day I was recording and I turned around and you were standing there, and I'm like, holy cow, you scared the crap out of me.
Sneaking up on you, sneak. So anyway,
but I think mostly it was decoration. I think it's an unfair criticism that it looks too much like a social media room. Again, maybe we're going back to misunderstanding of multi-purpose versus flex, which would have helped us understand.
Clearly, we're clueless on these concepts.
And Keith made the point at one point that he said, "Okay, we can do this, and we can check off the built-in piece." And so, I think that the requirements were to have built-in because all of the teams were trying to do built-in, but I don't think that this team had a built-in.
Unless it was a projection screen.
Unless it was, I guess.
But I thought their bathroom was really cool. I mean, they went with the black walls in the bathroom, and they even did like a black herringbone tile in the shower, which looked good. They had a bright white vanity.
Nice big mirror.
Big mirror, and all of their fixtures were black and clean and matched. And
Except the sconces.
Except the sconces. For some reason, they didn't offer
I still think it looked fine. But if you're going to complain about other people not having the same metal, you're going to get that, then you got to have criticism for that when you don't do it.
Yeah. So overall, I thought the bathroom was really good.
Glass sliding doors. They could not evaluate the niche because we could barely tell there was one.
Okay, so that covers the 4 designs. So the judging, as we said, was the teams judging each other. And the question I have here is, was there any gaming of the system going on? Like, if you were a lowball judge, you would bring down everybody else's average, and your average maybe could be higher. Or let's say you voted for the room that you really thought was the worst, and hoping that yours would rise to the top because you'd rank them in an order that was different somehow to advantage you. So, I don't want to accuse any of these teams of nefarious motives or anything like that, but there are lots of opportunities for gaming when you're judging each other.
And I think, going back to, excuse me, the judging, wow. Sorry, it's really.
As you said, you've got a sore throat, and we've been talking
for 50 minutes. We've been at this for a little while.
Yeah.
I've been drinking water. I meant to bring some tea, and got these lozenges and stuff. But I think I'm running out of time here. So everybody got a vote. So I'm assuming that meant 6. We got the final score, and I'm sitting here trying to figure out how you get to that final score with. We got the final score for one team. And, none of the explanations of what they did, I think, in situations like this, a lot of times you would throw out the highest and the lowest. You only have 6 votes. I mean, so you could throw out the highest and the lowest and then take the mean of the other 4 in order to try to get rid of said bias. but I don't know what they did.
And the judging was not well explained. It wasn't clear whether each person had a vote or each team had a vote. It wasn't clear whether they were only able to give whole numbers or whether you could give somebody like a 9.5. All we know is somehow Sarah
1 to 10.
Sarah and Brian ended up with a 9.1. If you figure out how that math works, but with whole numbers, it's almost impossible. So I'm guessing they were able to give
I'm thinking if they got 5 9s and a 10, that's 55 points divided by 6. It's 9.1 with a 9.16, I think. But then if you round down, it's round down to 1 and 1.
Who knows? I mean, these people are not particularly knowledgeable about music. I'm guessing that math and statistics is probably not their forte either. I don't know. But anyway.
It's a TV show. It's not a lesson in math and statistics.
So anyway, Brian and Sarah
9.1, seriously. like, geez.
We just have to move on. It's a TV show, Stephen.
Is it?
Yeah. So
but Brian and Sarah won. They won last week, and they had the shared win with Keith and Evan. I mean, they've won 2.5 times. Paige and Mitch have won twice. The twins won once, and Keith and Evan have the half to their point. So back to your point of maybe there being thumb on the scales. They did so. Thinking about the money aspect, the winner got $6,000 this week. All the teams except for the twins had $10K going into last week that was going to be left over, the twins having 5. Brian and Sarah won last week, augmenting their 10 to 15, and now they've won again. They're 15-21. They've got $21,000 going into the last week, head and shoulders above everybody else.
Yeah, twice as much as any other team. God. So this is a real advantage for them as far as like having.
It's just setting them up to screw up.
Yeah, right. They'll probably, knowing them, they'll make a bad decision with it and not capitalize on that huge advantage they have in terms of cash. But Stephen, who would have you picked as the winner? Like, because I'm thinking about this, and Brian and Sarah won, and we're both like, huh?
Yeah, I mean, totally. They wouldn't have been in my top 5.
Well, but who would you have picked? Like, seriously, because all 4 had flaws, right? So it's hard to tell. They may have had the least flaws when I think about it.
Yeah, but what did they do? I mean, the question is,
they did the paneling, the built-in, their bathroom looked nice. There was nothing about their room that was sort of off-putting or.
Yeah, I mean, they had a bathroom. They didn't really do anything in the bedroom, which was their complaint at Paige and Mitch. I think, I think, like Brian said, I think Keith and Evan's bedroom was the best. The artwork was, an interesting choice. But from a standpoint of how easy is it to remedy, that's really easy. Take it out, donate it, do what give it to your local Buddhist temple. I don't know, but that's probably a different religion. But anyway, whatever. So you can get rid of it. But
probably Hindu, but who knows? But
whatever.
I mean, at the end of the day, if I was a judge, I'm trying to think, I probably would have given it to Keith and Evan because I just thought their design was so much more transformative, so much more beautiful. I really loved the room. I didn't love the bathroom, but it's hard to say.
So, and thinking about rectifying a mistake. How could you rectify the mistake if the mistake that killed them was having caramel grout in the bathroom? That's remediable. We had an issue in our bathroom where the guy that did the grout forgot to grout the niche. And so when he came back in and he grouted it, it was a different color than the rest of the wall. And so he just kind of scraped it out and he redid it. And then he said, yeah, if this doesn't work, what I can do is I can just scrape out a little bit throughout the entire wall and just regrout the whole wall. You don't have to dig the tile out. You don't have to take tile out. You don't even have to take that much of the grout out to change the color. So, and granted, given that it's stones, that's a lot of scraping.
That's a lot of scraping.
But you don't have to scrape it all out.
Yeah, so. And I actually don't think their real challenge was just the grout color. I just would not have used that busy pattern on the floor and on the wall. So I don't know. I felt like the twins' music room was okay, underwhelming. I liked the social media space a lot, and I liked their bathroom a lot. But I think the only point with theirs is there were no built-ins. There was really no sort of added value to the room. So it was...
Yeah, though I think hands down the worst bedroom was Brian and Sarah.
I think so? I don't think so. I don't think it was the worst, but yeah.
It definitely wasn't the best, and I don't think it was second. And as far as bathrooms go, I think they all this tiny bathroom. When we saw Keith and Evan standing in there, it's like they couldn't even stand side by side, and that's when there was nothing in it. I mean, that room, small.
Yeah, really small bathrooms, which again makes you wonder why this house was designed this way and why they couldn't have done like a Jack and Jill or something between these two bedrooms to give you a nicer, bigger bathroom.
Right, because there's two bedrooms and they're both en suite on the second floor.
And both en suite with tiny little bathrooms. So, if you're using it as a guest house or a vacation rental, that's great.
Yeah, for Brian and Sarah, it works out awesome because they're planning on theirs being a rental. They probably actually already own it.
So anyway, as you already said,
Airbnb
next week is the finale.
We think that's what they're alluding to.
They actually said that, and so they'll have to finish the whole house.
Well, we don't know whether it's going to be a 2-week episode or whether they're going to do everything next week. So I mean, it's the beginning. Next week is the beginning of the end.
They've done nothing with the ground floor, so we'll see what they do.
Most of it's a garage,
but I think there's space for another room. Like I've said, I'd put an exercise room or something down there, but we'll see what they do. And then there's the other bedroom on the third floor, and then we'll see what other final touch-ups. Sometimes they use that last week to correct mistakes they've made. So I'm crossing my fingers that Sarah and Brian rethink that awful closet in the master bedroom with their $21,000 and do something a little better.
I'm not sure if they've got room to do that because I think what is behind where they have their bedroom, which would be on the other side of the wall from this room, is the
elevator.
Well, for them it's the elevator. Yeah, for the other teams it's a laundry room, which Keith and Evan have finished, but I don't think the twins or Paige and Mitch have finished it. So they were going to have to do that. And then Brian and Sarah, that's where the elevator is going to be. So again, the Keith and Evan have already done that room. Paige, Mitch, the twins have not, so they've got to do that room in addition to. And they've got that, so they've got that work they've got to do that the other teams aren't going to have to do because, like I said, Evan and Keith have already done it.
Yeah, and Brian and Sarah are going to have to put a laundry room in the first on the ground floor. It's the only place they can put one.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so I'm excited. I can't wait to see how these houses turn out. But they've got an elevator,
so you can take your stuff up and down to it.
So who do you think is going to win overall? What are you thinking about? Because who wins isn't necessarily additive of the individual spaces. Yeah, it's about the livability of the whole house, right?
And what was it? Mika and Brian and Mika Kleinschmidt in season 2 didn't win at all any of the weeks. Right, that was the big call out there. I think that you can rule out Brian and Sarah from winning because they've won so much. That's just not the way the show's gonna play out. I don't think it's in the cards for Keith and Evan to win. They got their half a win, and I don't think that's gonna. I'm thinking more of the play from HGTV more so than I think whose space is better. I mean, if you just ask me who I think's going to win conceptually, I think it's probably. I think Paige and Mitch have a running, but they've won twice. So I don't know. Maybe the twins pull it out. Although I'm going to say that when they were in the warehouse, I did hear oboe music when they were showing Keith and Evan. You think it was a bassoon, but either way, it's ominous sounding music. And then I think the twins, back to the twins found a way to lose.
Well, I'm going to differ with you there. I actually think Keith and Evan have a chance to win because I think holistically their house comes together more, very cohesive. They did add that bedroom, so they're going to have.
They
crammed a bedroom in. So
yeah, so
got
HGTV crammed another episode
in
here.
Yeah, where exactly. So they've got 5 bedrooms where others will only have 4 and an extra bathroom. So that is going to be added appraised value to their house. And I think, their design, each space by itself is nice but not overwhelming. But I think the overall house, very cohesive, very nice theming. So I think they have a shot. Mm-hmm. I do think that Sarah and Brian...
Well, they're on the show. Obviously, they've got a shot.
Yeah, Sarah and Brian have made the best use of the view and of like the living space,
right.
living room, balcony, all of that. So I think they have
main
a shot.
Closet.
And I think
the main closet.
The main closet is a that could keep them from the wind. But we'll see how the elevator pays out when they judge the whole house. We'll see if the solar panels, you never know. Maybe the appraiser says these solar panels are going to rocket this house to the top in terms of appraisal, despite the ugly pink sink and other questionable choices
the
that have been
girls.
made. That those solar panels are really going to pay off in the overall judging. So I kind of think it's anyone's game at the end. It really depends how things factor into the appraisal.
Yeah, one of the things that the teams made for TV complained about when they had this was also the episode where they couldn't, apparently they had promised the coffee vendor for the show to get on TV, and they hadn't made it into the show, so they had the requisite Keith and Evan interacting with another team, which is rare, but out in the middle of the night talking to the twins, discussing how they were going about things, including not knowing who the judge was. And so I think that, they're, a little bit of, when the judge comes in, who knows what they're going to comment on. We saw the interesting, if nominal comments from the farmhouse woman. So, who knows who they're going to bring in to do the judging, and hopefully it's not her.
I think it's going to be one of the Property Brothers in the previews.
That's right. That's right. One of the Property Brothers.
He's done the judging in some other years too.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Yeah.
We did see him poke his head around in some of the commercials and previews of things. So I think you're right. So we'll see. I haven't watched that show very much. I don't know if he's really into solar panels or if he's tall. Maybe he does like an elevator. We'll see, because their biases, what they like, is going to be an influence. That's just, that's why they bring them in. That's how they get judged. So, it really kind of depends on how they look at it.
Yeah. So we'll see at the end of the day. So I'm excited for next week. That I think that's all we have to say about this week's episode. We've talked a lot about one little guest room, multi-purpose room space.
Well, hey, they had a whole show about it. We got to talk about it. Okay. That's what we do here. That's
kind of the point.
That's kind of the point. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for hanging in with us. We'll look forward to next week when we finally see who's going to win Rock the Block Season 5.
Woohoo!